Another kind of tactic that these studios would use when making these cartoons is you'll notice a lot of these cartoons don't have that many episodes. But they ran for like decades almost. Like the original Scooby-Doo show, like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, only has about like 20 something episodes.
Mhm.
But then they made spin-offs. Some got spin-offs, some didn't. Some just got like maybe TV movies. But for Scooby-Doo, of course, there's the Scooby-Doo, there's the Scooby-Doo movies, there's the Scooby-Doo show, there's Scooby-Doo in Hollywood, there's Scooby and Scrappy-Doo, there's Scooby and Scrappy-Doo. Who knows what happened with Fred, Daphne, and Velma, but who cares? 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo and the Marx Brothers, Scooby-Doo and Ronald Reagan. That one was a good one. That was actually very entertaining special.
You
Yeah, that's what I
joking?
was. Yeah, yes. But yeah, there was a lot of special shows like that, and just eventually, like there were a lot of Scooby-Doo shows in fact that were like inspired. You know, you have your Speed Buggies, Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels. You have your Josie and the Pussycats. These are all shows about a bunch of teenagers solving mysteries. Hanna-Barbera basically creates like this whole ecosystem where they're basically running Saturday mornings for a solid decade in the 60s and early 70s. Something's just kind of fizzling out in a way. Have you guys seen any of these shows, like reruns on Boomerang, like any like the Scooby-Doo? Yeah.
Absolutely. Those were a lot of the ones that I would watch as a kid, honestly. I mean, it would be like on either Boomerang or sometimes Cartoon Network, like before they just like started messing around with like what like channel would get what for streaming. Because sometimes it would be like similar and then they decided like to have the separate rebrand. Then I felt like Boomerang just kind of disappeared or became like a slot on Cartoon Network. Like that's how they labeled like some of their cartoon slots for those older cartoons, if I'm remembering correctly, but I was a child. But they're really good. They're really good. I don't know what streaming service has them now, because I know that there's I thought that there was one that was just dedicated to it, and then I know that I think Hulu has some of the modern Cartoon Network ones. So I don't know if they have the rights to it or not. But all the silly Scooby-Doo specials, because they just like kept going. They like kept running. Scooby-Doo specifically, they just kept running with the specials like up until they had like the Supernatural one. Do you all remember that? Like there's just
They ran it into the ground, honestly.
they had so many. And I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. Like, I would love to just see all of them just so I could read all the titles because there's so many.
My favorite is Scooby-Doo Goes Hollywood, though.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Turns out Fred has like it's a very, very troubling special, honestly, because Fred has this like serious like coke addiction. And then Daphne gets a bit of an eating disorder because she wants to like fit in with like the rest of the Hollywood crowd at the time. She wants that Farrah Fawcett body, but it's kind of sad. And then I think at the very end, Scooby gets like pulled over by a police officer, Scooby and Shaggy, and they have weed on them, and then does not go well.
Girl, what the hell? That should not be for kids. Coke addiction and eating disorder and getting pulled over for drug possession. That's crazy.
But I think the people remember the most about the 70s going into the 80s is the kind of deregulation of the media, which kind of allows a bit more advertising in terms of what you're able to show to kids. At one point in 78, they tried to ban ads to kids under 6. I don't think it took, though. And pretty much as soon as Reagan gets in office, he just kind of says, yeah, you guys can do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm worried about this Iran-Contra affair that I'm taking part in. And you get all these cartoons, and a lot of them are syndicated too. Networks aren't really doing as much as they used to, but you get syndicated cartoons like He-Man. You get your G.I. Joes. You know, and they're like mass producing these, like as opposed to like in the 60s and 70s where you'd make like a season and a half of like a show. G.I. Joe has like a solid like 65 episodes its first season. He-Man's got like 130 total episodes, and these are all being played like from like September to December. It's like every single day they're trying to play an episode, advertise to kids to buy the toys, whatever He-Man action figure, He-Man cereal, He-Man sword, He-Man cups. I do remember they were He-Man cup. I think they were He-Man cups, if I remember correctly.
I feel like they had the cups and everything for almost every single one of them. Because at that point, after the Federal Trade Commission really tried to double down on the lack of advertising, and studios realized that in order to stay afloat and continue making revenue, they needed advertising, because that was like the backbone of why they were able to continue animation. Because at this point, animation had started out being the cheapest medium to make stuff in, and then now it's getting more and more expensive with these different like technological evolutions and everything. So as soon as they realized they could just capitalize fully off of toys, and they don't have to worry about doing those little PSAs that they had to do with the original cartoons, they were like, oh my god, like let's do this, and we need this character in everything. And I feel like that's really where, because like branding was really big at the time, but I feel like these original shows really showed also just the origination of like how powerful an icon could be that's not just associated with like some sort of bigger like theme park, clothing brand, anything. They realized that icons can mean a lot to children as well. Getting that recognition and having as many products as possible to consume was the goal. And again, after they had this rise in deregulation, kids were being just fully manipulated into wanting their parents to buy all these things so they could match the shows, they could be like their favorite character, because even though the shows are about the toys and just fully capitalistic at this point, these are still characters that the kids can relate to. They're still having these messages really very deep about like friendship and like staying curious, being creative, being themselves, all this stuff in it. It's just masked over this fully capitalistic thing, where I feel like the original cartoons would always have like at the very end like that sort of wraparound where it's like well, like a good example is Scooby-Doo, when they would unmask the guy, they would fully explain why it's actually a human underneath the mask and why he did this, and how you just gotta be a good person at the end of it, you know? And these ones were just kind of like more buried, and it's like, you really want to be a good person though? Buy our new action figure. Look, he glows. And then kids are like, oh my god, I have to be a good person and buy this action figure so I can and I mean, probably bragging to friends too, I can imagine, because at this point, we're in the 80s, pop culture's booming. These shows are just fully starting to take over and really embrace imagination, which I feel like for the first time, it's fully being embraced, like individuality, heroism, fully being creative, all of that. Which still sucks that like the plots were really it sometimes would feel like the product placement and the capitalistic like urge to like why the show was actually created overshadowed it. But it's interesting to see that the effect on kids, like kids were still able to pick up that sort of subtext, because I feel like that's the biggest thing with children's media now. I feel like is so many of these modern shows they just don't. Even like, actually, even for adults, there's like no subtext in anything anymore. It's so hard to find sometimes, and I'm like, people can see it. I was like, a kid knows. They know. Like, obviously, they don't know everything. That's why you have like innuendos and adult jokes thrown in there, like just for tee hee ha ha. But like, it's crazy. I was like, we see it in the 80s. Like, yeah, buy this toy, buy this toy, buy this toy. Look. But also friendship. And then the kids are like, yeah, I want to be a cool hero like He-Man, power of friends. And it's like, oh, wow. It's like they were able to pick up that subtext in the story, even though it wasn't like fully at the front, which again, wish it was. But I don't know. That's the thing I like to think about.